Morning. It is October the 8th, 2022. I'm an addict and my name doesn't really matter. And I have been clean since 1983.
I wanted you to be Ethel.
I can be Ethel. I'm an addict and my name is Ethel.
I'm an addict and my name is Fred.
And when'd you get clean?
82.
82, okay.
Yeah, 1982.
Yep. Okay, we're going to talk about sponsorship today. That's our topic. How we roll. And this is a weird one. Because we sponsor, I don't know how to say this.
We sponsor each other.
We sponsor each other.
And people tell us not to do that.
Yeah, but it has worked for 23 years.
Before you got married.
Before I got married, which is 23 years ago.
23 years
Today.
ago. I married you.
That's right. So, like I said, good morning. I'm still working on my fourth cup of coffee, so I'm not awake yet. Sponsorship. We sponsor each other, but we also sponsor other people. And we kind of wanted to talk about how that works. When it's us together, we both are aware of the concept of triage, who's hurt worse the mostest, and who needs the mostest quickest. And 9 times out of 10, you just listen, which is unusual because I had an experience last week. I was at a meeting and I was sharing about something that was really bothering me. And all of a sudden, everybody kept flipping it around to them. And I'm like, I wasn't talking about you, I was talking about me. They weren't sharing experience, strength, and hope. They were just, well, what do you think I had to go through? I'm like, I don't care what you had to go through. This is what I'm going through now.
It takes us a while to realize that pain is pain is pain is pain.
Right.
And that
it's difficult
just
to find people.
You go through something that I don't empathize with doesn't mean that the pain that you're feeling is not as important or large as the pain that I'm feeling.
Right.
Yeah, it's
so
difficult. It took me a long time to do. I'm going to interject real quick.
That's fine.
It took me a real long time to understand that about abuse, because
okay.
I wouldn't want to give. Because I come from a very verbally abusive family,
mm-hmm.
but everybody wants to tell you how bad sexual abuse is, which it is, and physical abuse is, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had smart people tell me verbal abuse is just as damaging as all three of them.
Yes,
all three of them are just as damaging, and they're all abuse. And when you start trying to which one's worse or which one's better, then you don't give yourself permission to feel the pain.
Right.
Right? Because I just think, well, it's just verbal abuse. It wasn't nearly as bad as sexual abuse.
Yeah.
But it still gave me PTSD, it still gave me feelings when something happened. Somebody would say a trigger word or something, and I'd be right back there with the feeling inside my body. I wouldn't be acting like I was 12, but I would be feeling like I was 12, right? And if they say enough trigger words, then I feel like I'm a dog in a corner, and then I start fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
So, that was how I...
Just, it's hard to find people who just listen. And I've actually said that. I had a couple 5-6 years clean and sponsoring a lot of people, and I was having difficulty finding someone to listen. And I got one of my sponsees, and we sat on my front porch, and I said, I need you to sit there, look at me, not say a fucking word until I tell you to, and listen. And I was able to get it all out, and they were able to do that. And there's something therapeutic about that. One addict helping another.
How do you really, if you think about it, I'm just supposed to be sharing my experience, strength, and hope.
Right.
Not advice.
Right.
Not your experience, strength, and hope.
Right.
Unless you and I have an agreement and I can say, I know a guy that, things like that.
Correct.
So how else would we do that? Because if you're talking and sharing with me and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to you or how I'm going to help you, that's another way to play God.
That's right.
I mean, because I don't know how to, really, honestly, when you get right down to it, I do not know how to help you.
Right.
Right? What I know how to do is share experience, strength, and hope, other things that I've heard in the program, even some of my own spiritual life experience that might not have anything to do with Narcotics Anonymous.
Right.
Right? Because I might I might share about God that has nothing to do with Narcotics Anonymous except for you figure out how you understand him, not how I understand him. Right?
Yeah.
Telling people just does not work.
No, it doesn't. So let's get into sponsorship thing of how I had this little speech I would give people every time someone asked me to sponsor them. And we would have an initial sit down. It happened so much over the years, so coming up on 39, that about 15 years ago, someone suggested I write it down. So I did. And now I just say, here, read this, instead of going through it. And it spells out, what the process is, what the expectation is. Now you got to remember, we got clean before there was a basic text, before there was It Works How and Why, before there was what we call the flat book or the coloring book, or what's it actually called?
Workbook.
The workbook, the NA step workbook, and then the
I call it the flat book.
The flat book.
I don't know why. That's what a lot of people. I think I'm cool when I say the flat book.
Okay, I've heard it called the coloring book.
You're even cooler. I like that.
Anyway, so we didn't have, the literature that we have today. So, and I still do it the old-fashioned way because that's how I did it. My thought and theory is, if you want what I got, you do what I did. This is what I did. And the step guides that I use are non-NA approved. They are Narcotics Anonymous. They were developed by people in Narcotics Anonymous, but they're not published anywhere. They're not readable in a meeting, so to speak.
No, you can't bring them to a meeting.
No, you can't bring them to a meeting.
I mean,
But
you
what
can
they
say
are,
sentences.
what they are is a transcript of some telephone conversations between a man named Jimmy Kennan and another man named Vito. I think his last name is L, and he's currently still alive.
He's got the most clean time in narcotics.
Does he? Okay, I thought there
After
was like
Bob
one.
B died.
After Bob died, yeah.
Yeah, Vito's in. God, he's got to be in his 50 years.
Yeah, plus, yeah.
Yeah, 50 years plus. Because
Yeah.
what I got, I forgot what I got, but I got that. 40 years. That's what I got.
Yeah, 40. Yeah, you're at 40. I'm fixing to hit 39, and then your next one will be 41.
Yeah, and so yeah.
So
And for me, that seems like forever.
it is forever.
And so yeah, he's been around. A lot.
I was thinking, heck, I've been clean more than 75% of my life, I think. So
If you guys don't know who Vito is, I would look up some of his tapes online.
Vito L.
Some of his speaks
Yeah.
because his transition from AA to NA is absolutely amazing.
So right.
1962 or whatever that is, they didn't have that much. They had no NA in New York City anyway.
That's true. What was I thinking about? Oh, these step guides have sets of questions that go with them, and we'll, probably talk about some of them in subsequent things about steps. I think we've already done an episode, and I'll link to it on step 1. I'll put a link to it in the description and in the somewhere on the screen. But I think that I was told, and I've tried to get this through to people, and for some reason it just doesn't seem to sink in, that I need to spend, to get my steps done, 15 minutes a day. That's it. In one spot, sitting down at a table, pencil and paper, undisturbed, for 15 minutes. I can read, I can write in that 15 minutes. But the idea is to do it at the same time every day, in the same spot every day. Okay, this forms a healthy habit. It takes 90 days of doing something positive to form a healthy habit. That's why we go to 90 meetings in 90 days. This is Psychology 101. So, in order to be successful at, say, one of the beginning of the cleanup steps, because the first 3 will get you clean, but life still sucks. The middle 6 make life not suck, and the last 3 is a repetition of the first 9. So, in order to get to step 4, I ask them to read the step in the basic text. Now, they can read other stuff if they want, but the step in the basic text every day for 7 days without fail. If you skip a day, I don't care if it's on the 7th day. If you screw up and skip a day, start over. The idea is consistency. If you're a morning person, do it in the morning before everybody gets up. If you're a night person, do it at night when everybody's in the bed, you know. You can do this with kids. You can do this single. You can do this with a spouse. I mean, it doesn't matter your living situations. You can figure out a way to spend 15 minutes a day on your recovery. And if you will do it in the same spot at the same time every day, then that sets you up for success later, okay? When it's harder, when you don't want to sit down, okay? So you read step 1 in that 15 minutes, because it doesn't take that long to read it in the basic text. It's like a page and a half, 2 pages, maybe a page and 3/4. And the way they got it split up, it looks like 3 pages, but it's not. And then you sit down and you read the question. You read the step 1 guide that I have, that I supply to them, and then you answer the questions. And some of the questions I think we actually used in the step 1 one. And then you call me, and we either do, in today's world, a Zoom or face-to-face, if we can do that. We sit down, we open with a prayer. I read the question, you read what you wrote. Don't add anything, just read what you wrote. Even if it doesn't make sense, read what you wrote. When you're done reading what you wrote, then you can add something in. I may ask some questions, I may say, let's move on. I may bring up a point. The whole idea behind the questions is to help the sponsor, me, understand the sponsee, you, get something. There's a specific thing that you need to walk away with each step for, that you need to understand what that step is, and all the questions do is...
And it's not always the same thing for everybody.
No, it's not.
I mean, it changes for you.
Oh, yeah.
I like to emphasize we don't do cookie-cutter recovery.
No.
I think so many people push cookie-cutter recovery. We don't do that. I don't know what you're going to get out of step 1 or not.
Oh, right.
I just know you're going to get it, right? I just know when you get it. I don't know how I know. I just know when you get it.
Exactly.
And the other thing I know is if we're on step 2 and you're having a hard time with step 2, we go back to step 1 because you missed something.
Right.
Step 2 shouldn't be any harder than step 1. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, because if you can't get it, well, you missed something in the first one because they built on each other. And the only difference I do with that is that I do almost all mine face to face.
Okay.
And I haven't, well, not anymore because I've had some bad experiences. But we'll go somewhere if they've been around a while and I trust them, then I'll let them come to my house. I don't just let anybody come to my house because of my grandchild, my wife. I've had some bad experiences with some people coming to my house.
I've had addicts break into my house and steal my stuff.
Yeah, and I had an addict.
And he wasn't a sponsee.
I had an addict bully my wife into giving him money when he was high.
Oh, wow.
And she was really, really scared.
Yeah.
And then when I moved and he got clean again, he said, "You're not going to tell me where you live, are you?" And I said, "Never again."
Yeah.
"No, Dave, you will never know where I live ever again."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had an addict call my wife and pretend to kill himself and shot his gun and then wouldn't answer on the phone. Right? So I'm really cautious about stuff like that now.
Right.
But what I'm saying is I have them sit down, and I like to do it outside, because I have a canopy, a porch with a top, and so what I do is whatever they wrote.
A porch without a top is just called outside. But
hey, that's good.
I'm sorry.
No, I like that.
Waking
up. What I do is I take whatever they wrote and I just throw it to the side.
Okay.
And then they'll say, "Well, I wrote that," and I'm like, "I understand you wrote that,
but you didn't write it for me.
But if you wrote it for me, then you need to go do it again."
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't give a shit what's on that paper.
Right.
It means nothing to me. It means something to you, and I'm going to help you figure out what it means to you. Right. But if we can't talk about step 1, and when we leave, I don't think you have a good understanding of step 1, I will tell you, right? I mean, we should be able to talk about step 1. You have a good foundation that we can build on when you start working on step 2.
Right.
And be able to refer back to step 1 to help you get through step 2. Because step 2, if you understand step 1, step 2 makes so much sense. It's,
Yeah.
if this is the way of life you decide,
Exactly.
and I expect you to decide this way. I mean, that's your decision, not mine. I don't care if you do this or not. There's other programs.
Right.
There's psychiatrists. There's psychologists. There's church. There's all sorts of things. But if you want to work Narcotics Anonymous, that's what we're talking about.
Well, if you want to do what I did,
Right.
because this is what I've done. Now, with me, after you do step one, we go through the answers. There's a period where I will ask, what did you learn? What did you get out of doing this, if anything? Was there something new? What is the question? I wrote them down in my how we roll. Oh, what is the spiritual principle of this step? And different people have different answers. I know that, I give them what it is for me. And then they can take that and incorporate it or not. And then I ask them, do they have any questions? And then we have a hug. So there's a formal prayer at the beginning, hug at the end. It's an event. It's not a process. It's the sitting down, going over your step with your sponsor. It's an event. Okay, so it has a beginning and an end. Then you take a day off, and you may have some homework. Like in step 2, I'll ask them to pay attention to things that might be powers greater than themselves. Okay, those if they see a beer sign and then realize that they're fixing to do something that's going to hurt themselves, that's a power greater than you. That's a step 2 discussion, but not only pay attention to it, but tell me about it. So you got to write it down if you can't remember shit. So I was told I cannot recover without a pen. So me not having a pen somewhere nearby is unusual. But since we've got cell phones, I've got a cell phone that I can actually take notes on. So
I tell them a pen, paper, and a dictionary.
Dictionary. Yeah.
And now you can look words up, but you got to look up words because you don't know what the hell they mean, even though you think you do. I mean,
you got to look words up.
And I also
I've been in meetings where they had dictionaries sitting on the table.
Well, because you need
it was part of the group.
Most of us think we know what they mean, and then when I started looking up some of these significant words, that's what I'll do. Like with the steps, sometimes it depends on who it is, right?
I'll look up words like
look up every word, and I'll ask them because in this first step, I'll ask them if we're going over. I said, "What does we mean? What does that mean? What does that mean to you?" Because it's really important.
Right.
If you don't get the we part, you might as well throw the other stuff away.
Right.
And that's what I'll ask them that. And I also tell them, those little bitty notebooks that we would call them nerds back in high school.
Oh yeah,
because I was an addict, but there was nerds, right?
Right.
And they would put those little bitty.
Pocket protector things.
No, well, in a notebook, you got notebooks that are like 2.5 inches long,
exactly,
or wide, right?
Yeah.
And I would have them write things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And I would have them, like in step 1, what I have them do a lot of times is take that notebook and they have to write down 5 things that they've gone through that day that they don't have power over.
That's good. I like that.
I'll have them do that, and then they'll fill it up, right? And I say, this is your little notebook where you take little notes so you can write bigger stuff.
Bigger stuff later,
because because we're not going to remember, and you've been using so long, you got a fog anyway, and you're pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Even the smart ones are pretty stupid, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the answer really is right in front of our face. It's right in front of our nose. It's not a secret. It's not hidden. No. There's nothing hard about this program. It's very simple. It's just not easy.
That's right. It's not. It's simple and easy to learn. It's difficult to practice on a regular basis. That's the problem. So that's where sponsorship comes in, because basically it reminds me, I need to be doing X, Y, and Z.
Especially when we start feeling better.
Yeah.
You get 90 days behind your belt, you start feeling better. Then you think you can just slack off for a while.
And something.
Yeah, it's like, guys, I've been clean this long, and when I slack off, I still suffer consequences.
Right.
I'm not telling you I don't slack off, and I'm not telling you I'm the perfect recovery person in the world, but when I do the things I'm not supposed to do, the consequences happen. And when I do the things I'm supposed to do, everything works out. And I made a choice, especially, I didn't have a lot of choices back then, but I made a choice to be part of Narcotics Anonymous. Mm-hmm. And I made a choice because I was told that 1 out of 100 people make it. And I made a decision. I was going to be one of those. I was going to be that one. That was it. So to be that one, you have to be willing to do anything you're asked.
Right.
That's why I don't like to. That's why I don't. Sometimes I just give them an assignment and say, do the assignment, and then we'll talk.
Right.
And I don't let them say, well, what am I going to get out of it? I said, I have no, because I'll just say, I have no fucking idea.
Right.
You might not get anything out of it. We'll have to do something different, or it might change your world. And, I don't know.
Right.
But you got to do it.
So the steps are done in a rinse and repeat for me anyway, and the questions are different until you get step 4. If it's your first step 4, and you actually will sit down for 15 minutes a day, you can probably get it done. I've seen most people get it done in about 6 months. Even if they've been using for 30 years, they can probably get it done in about 6 months. They'll write more than 15 minutes sometimes, but at least that, okay? And we use the Working Step 4 in Narcotics Anonymous booklet that you can get from the NA website.
Yep, that's a good one.
That's one of the best ones, And then we do, and here's the thing about Step 4 that I'm really strong. I'll hear people say, I finished Step 4 a couple months ago and I've been waiting for my sponsor to get with me. No. You don't, and I'll tell them, don't finish Step 4 without telling me you're about to finish Step 4, because we will plan Step 5 almost immediately.
Right.
I have seen so many people use and die because they procrastinated working the 5th step after working the 4th step. They say the 4th step separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls from the women and the thems from the theys. Now you got to say that too. That, separate the folks who are serious about this thing. Well, I've seen people work Step 4 and then not do Step 5 and cause havoc in their lives. Oh my God. So I'm like, don't be sneaking no Step 5 in on me. We got to plan this because it's going to take, I think the shortest Step 5 I ever done was 3 hours.
I usually have to do them in 2 sessions sometimes.
Yeah. And most times I say, let's plan 6. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's 2 days in a row. You're exactly right.
And I just let them have their 4th step in front of them.
Right.
I don't let them read out of it,
right.
But I do let them refer to it because there's so much written in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I don't, it's like I don't care. And then I ask them questions.
A lot of people would just want me to hand it. I'm like, I'm not reading this.
No, I've never read one.
No, I'm not reading this. You didn't write it for me.
No, I said, I don't care. I'm sorry, but I don't give a shit what's in there.
Right.
I need you to tell me what you give a shit what's in there.
Right.
And be as honest as possible, so then we will both know what we're doing.
Right.
Right. And where we go from there.
Right.
And then I always have them, like the 4-step booklet. Sometimes I'll tell them they can do 2 questions a day, but usually 1 question a day.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them want to work in do the flat book too, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just tell them, I don't care if you do the flat book, but we're not going to go over everything in the flat book.
Because I've never done it.
Because I do tell them that anytime, any step we work on, I said, I want you to read the written parts in the flat book, okay? But I haven't been able to get past step 1, right? As far as answering the questions. Yeah. I think it's because they're just too many of them, 72, and they keep asking the same question, and and I'm not saying that that's bad. That's not what I'm saying.
I understand.
But I tell them that they can't answer more than 3 questions a day.
Yeah.
And they're I'm like, I know, 72 questions is going to take you a long time.
Yeah.
But if you write that much, you can't retain it, right?
Right.
And I always say have them rewrite their stuff too, because there's just so much.
My complaint is there's so much redundancy in it, but I've actually heard people share that they like that because it forces them to bring out stuff more. And I'm thinking, I've already answered that question. I'm not answering it again, because I do answer it because it says, we have to honestly do this.
You're better than me, because when I was doing it, I'd get to a question, I'd say, God damn it. I just had 8 paragraphs on that stuff. Jesus.
Refer to question 3. I did a lot of that. Refer to.
Oh my God! But I have no problem. I like people liking the book. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking the book. It's awesome. And some of the written stuff that's in the book between the questions. Some of the best stuff we got Narcotics Anonymous.
I know, it's
And
amazing.
I think a lot of times people, they don't emphasize those parts, right?
Right.
They just kind of say, well, if that book has so, and it's like, no, it's Narcotics Anonymous literature. You need to know what's going on, and I'll give you good reasons why I don't answer all the questions. You do whatever you want.
Right.
If you want to answer 72 questions and the questions that I'm going to ask you, I don't care.
My home group has done, step studies where we read the parts between the questions at the meeting. That was our step study.
We only have one book that I really question, and that's sponsorship.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you can buy it anymore, but if you read it, there's still some good stuff in the sponsorship book too. It's just not the way we standardly, a lot of us would sponsor somebody.
Right. I understand. Okay. What else? Oh, once you get done with the steps, what's next? The traditions.
Right.
So we did an episode on traditions, or the general traditions, and we're going to be dropping in a tradition 1, and I'll put some links in the description to that. So remember to check those out. What else we want to talk about sponsorship?
I don't know. Well, I have some things I want to talk about,
Go
but
ahead.
I want you to get your ideas out first, because I think
I'm done.
I hurt a lot, so I drink a lot of caffeine, and so sometimes I talk way too much. So I really am trying
You're doing good.
I'm really trying to make sure that I think I've talked a little bit too much sometimes, so I'm really trying to make sure that what you get, I'm your sidekick.
I understand.
You're right, and if people listen to podcasts, they know what I'm talking about. Is that there's many podcasts that have 2 people involved. One person does most of all the technical work, and then the other person sometimes will do a lot of research and stuff.
Right.
But they're really, I didn't even prepare for this. I just see this is what I thought it would be nice to do. Right, because we don't sponsor people like normal. So that is. I just want to make sure we do things equally. And I tend to roll over people. So the things that I like, first of all, we're going to meet. I'm not even going to suggest to you, even when you say I'm sponsorship shopping, which a lot of people will say that, and then they're going to expect you to say something, and I just say, well, I hope you find I want it to be really uncomfortable when you ask me to be your sponsor.
Right.
I want you to understand that it's not an equal relationship. Right?
Right.
And that you're asking me to do something more than just be your friend.
Right.
And I've sponsored people for years that I didn't even like. Right? I don't have to like you. All I got to do is know how to be objective or subjective. Mm-hmm. And if you do enough stupid shit and I can't be objective anymore, I just tell you, I can't be objective anymore, and it's not fair. It's not right for me to sponsor you. But some of the things that I do go over, the first thing is I'm really a lot harder now because I'm older, and so I just tell them, we all had to go through 4 or 5 sponsors sometimes to get the right sponsor, and we had sponsors we didn't use. We had sponsors. I had a prestige sponsor one time where I'd walk into an NA meeting and tell them who my sponsor was, and they'd go, "Oh, I never used him, but it was cool that I had that prestige sponsor." And so I don't have time for that crap anymore. Right? I just don't have time for it. And I don't fuck around. I just tell them that you got to be serious. And if you're not serious, don't ask. And if you're not planning on doing 99.9% of the shit I say, I don't want to hear it. Right? That's because now that's for new people, right? That's not for old people. Right? There's a whole different scenario of sponsoring new people and people that have been in the program for a while and that have had many sponsors that helped them and they used, right? So it's a whole different thing for that. Or if I've sponsored you, I sponsored some people like 25 years. I got a sponsee right now, 25 years. You and I started sponsoring each other in 1999. That's almost 25 years.
Yeah,
right?
23.
Yeah, so so that's all, I'm just talking about my new people. And so I always tell them that. And then when I am sponsoring them, I let them know that if I suggest something, I expect them to do it. And then if they call me with the same problem, the same issue, I ask them if they did that. Mm-hmm. And I will talk to you one more time. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk to them about the problem and why I suggested what I suggested. If they call me again, and they haven't done my suggestion, I just tell them we don't have anything to talk about
Until you do.
Until you do, right?
Yeah.
You got to put in the effort.
Had a
If you don't
sponsor
put it-
hang up on me.
Yeah.
Say, call me back when you've done it.
Yeah. And that's not being mean, right?
No, it's not.
I think sometimes we confuse, and I don't think we're very good at it. So I think some people come off real mean, and I think in the early days I came off a lot meaner. And I'm not being mean. All I'm doing is setting boundaries. Do you want what I have or not? Sometimes it's a discussion, and sometimes it's not, right? And I'm the one that decides that because you haven't been around long enough to decide that. You work through the steps. You have a lot more say-so in your program. You get past step 5, you even have, you still have a lot more say-so in your program. It's just the way it is. You have to build and you have to have knowledge. And if you don't have the knowledge, what you think is just really not that important. You have to get some experience and then, you know. Like when you were talking about step 2, I never let them talk about God.
Right.
And I've lost a lot of sponsees like that because they said, well, I believe in God. I said, well, if God worked for you, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, so I never let them. I said, we go to God. It says God in the 3rd step. We don't worry about God in the 2nd step.
That's right.
Okay, so then, so I do that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm real strong and I'm real regulated on how I have them do things. Most of the time, I don't always have them do the same things in the same order. It just depends on who it is. But I always have them start on the first page of the basic text, which is blank. And I always tell them that the reason that page is blank, and I know this is a metaphor, and I know that's not the reason this page is blank, but I tell them that the page is blank because you don't know nothing about recovery, and you need to learn some things about recovery. So until you get past that, you know, that's what you need.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, you need to. It's a textbook, right? That's why I call it basic text. It means we study it. It doesn't mean we read it. We read it, we read it, we read it, we read it, and I tell everybody whatever I want them to read it at least 7 days, and sometimes they don't get it. And I was like, you need to do another 7 days.
Yeah.
You know? And then I always start next on the pyramid. Because the pyramid, when you're new in the program, your brain is so fucking crazy. It's so hard to focus. Sometimes you got to read a paragraph 20 times before you even get the damn paragraph.
I've done that.
Because I have sponsees tell me that all the time. I've read the same paragraph and I just can't comprehend it. I'm like, that's pretty common.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I didn't go to treatment, so the fog didn't leave me for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Maybe a year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just walking around stupid.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a pretty smart fella.
Yep.
And so I always get them started on the pyramid because the pyramid is easy to explain. It's only got a few words, and it's a real good way to start working a program and not using, right? Working on those 4 sides and the peak and, you know, and the goodwill and, you know, and one of those things is going to lots of meetings, right? Going to lots of meetings, and then I'll tell them that AA meetings don't count.
AA meetings don't count.
Never. And the reason is because I'm a Narcotics Anonymous sponsor, and I'll tell them if you want AA meetings to count, you need to do something different because AA and NA, as far as I'm concerned, are 2 completely different programs.
Right. Well, Chevy and Ford, they're 2 different political cars.
Right. I mean, it's just not the same.
No.
And I made decisions why I go to NA, and I will let you know what those are as we work the steps.
Right.
So, and I'll tell them I don't care if you go to AA meetings. I don't give a shit. I know how to. I went to AA meetings. I know how to help you transition the stuff that you learn in AA to how we do it in NA and understand the lessons, because some of the lessons are the same and some of the lessons are different.
That's right.
Right? So I don't care, but if I tell you to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, I expect you to go to 90 meetings in 90 days in Narcotics
It's anonymous.
And around here, since the COVID, it's been really hard. We don't have 90 meetings in 90 days. So I really push
face-to-face.
Right, I push Zoom meetings for them. I have a hard time with Zoom meetings, but I still, you know what I did? The other day I went to 2 Zoom meetings. Right? I have a hard time connecting to people on the internet, but I did. And you have to do things you don't want to do. That's one of the things I tell every sponsee. I don't care whether you like it or don't like it. If I don't like going to meetings, I don't care. Go to meetings till you like it. You know, I tell every sponsee that it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You want to be an adult? You want to be a husband? You want to be a father? Or, you know, I have sponsored a few girls. If, you know, whatever. That's a whole, we can take a whole episode on sponsoring.
Well, I was going to talk about that here, some stuff into that in a minute, but go ahead.
I kind of lost my train of thought. I expect you to do what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
And I expect you to not ask questions. Unless they're good questions, right? Not questions of like, what am I going to get out of it? Because all of us, part of addiction is what's in it for me.
Right.
As opposed to just doing the work, right? Yeah, I mean, so you have to figure that out. So I don't count AA meetings. I don't talk AA language. If you use AA language, I change it. I talk to you about how we identify as addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then when you're done with that, I have you read all the introductions, right? And we always take a long time, a good long time, to talk about what it says about Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
In the introduction, right? And then in that last part, where the why we're here and why we identify. I mean, it tells us right there why we identify as addicts. And then I go to the I don't know if it's an introduction, but it's where the book committee wrote their shit, right?
Oh yeah.
And then they got that one that one paragraph at the end,
right,
where it talks about NA service.
Is it the prayer paragraph?
Huh?
There's a paragraph that's a prayer.
Yeah. And I talked to him about the prayer, and also there's a thing about service. I have to read it usually when I talk to my sponsees and know what I'm going to say for sure. But there's a lot of good stuff in there, and why we do service work, and that we should never fight with each other.
Right.
Right, and that fighting with each other just draws insanity, and we have so many strong personalities that so much of the time we're just fighting about bullshit, right? So I go through that, and then we will start with who. Sometimes I start with what can I do,
right,
before who.
Okay.
Because what can I do gives a lot of good suggestions that I might not remember to that you can do, right?
Right.
It's got some really good. I think it's one of the best chapters we have. In fact,
right,
that it just, even if you're an old timer and you're lost, you read that chapter, it's like, oh yeah, back to basics. It's all basic. That's all I have done right now.
I think that's the part you were talking about.
Yeah, that's a prayer. Yeah.
This is the preface. This is in the preface to the first edition.
Yeah.
Therefore, with gratitude in our recovery, we dedicate our NA book to the loving service of our higher power, that through the development of a conscious contact with God, no addict seeking recovery need die without the chance to find a better way of life. We remain trusted servants in gratitude and loving service. Literature Committee, World Service Office, Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay, this is the other one I read too.
Okay.
And I let them know that I'm not going to sponsor them if they don't do service work. I don't care what service work is. It used to be picking up cigarette butts, making coffee, driving people to meetings. I don't care what you do, but you're going to do service work. And I read that. I make them read this. I mean, we emphasize this a lot. Everything that occurs in the course of NA service must be motivated by the desire to more successfully carry the message of recovery to the addict who still suffers. It was for this reason that we began this work. We must always remember that as individual members, groups, and service committees, we are not and should never be in competition with each other. We work separately and together to help the newcomer and for our common good. We have learned painfully that internal strife cripples our fellowship. It prevents us from providing the services necessary for growth. This is where we'll talk about gossip.
Okay.
This is where we'll talk about going to a meeting is service work.
Right.
This is where we talk about being in the solution and not the problem. And if you have a problem, it's fine to share the problem, but it's also fine to ask for help with solutions.
Right.
Because there's nothing more. I mean, people have come up to me and said, I can't believe you had that much time and you went to the meeting and cried and you were having such a hard time in life. And I'm like, I'm a human being just like you, right?
That's right.
Life on life's terms suck.
Sometimes.
And I have to figure out how to deal with it.
Most times.
So I get really frustrated when everybody acts like
that's actually in the introduction.
Spiritual gurus. Yeah, it is. That's why I'm not a retainer. I bet you I've read this book at least 500 times.
Yeah.
Right. So and it's all yellow, and it's got all sorts of writing in it, and so I have to refer back to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And like I have a 4-step prayer that I wrote in mine, but I can't actually. I mean, I could say it later. I don't care about when we were talking about the 4-step, but it's not obviously NA approved. I
Right.
wrote it. That I used. Yeah, I read that prayer every time. Okay, I don't know what else to say right now.
I wanted to, because some people are going to say, well, how many people do you sponsor? And I sat here and counted it up, and I've got 9. I think that's what you said you had, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I had 6.
6, okay. I sponsor 1, 2, 3 with more than 20 years. Okay, so they're real low maintenance, I guess. I sponsor 3 fairly new people, and when I say new, 5 years or less. Well, yeah, 5 years or less. And then I've got 3 that have 10 years or less. So, not all of them have worked through the steps, because some of them are fairly new to me. I sponsor 3 women, and one of them is a lesbian, okay, and she's married. The other one has been clean more than 25 years. And then there's another lady, and it's all online, so there's no weirdness. Don't even live in the same city. So, the very first, and I'm not sure where the concept of sponsorship even came from. Probably came somewhere out of AA. But the first woman to ever get sober in AA, her sponsor was Bill.
Right.
So, this whole men and women, and now you've got multiple pronouns, they and them, and what are these folks supposed to do? And if you are attracted to everybody, if you're bi, and you're supposed to not, be asking someone to sponsor you that you might actually want to sleep with. But my favorite line about sponsorship was Blaze. Remember her? I know, I love Blaze. If you women ain't heard Blaze, you need to go Google
You think
her.
I'm crude?
Yeah.
You think I'm unacceptable? You
Yeah.
need to listen to Blaze or
Yeah.
Bo or.
She said when she heard about sponsorship, she said, okay, I'll get a sponsor, Budweiser. She was familiar with, those kinds of companies and sponsorship on TV and all, because she was in a roller derby. Like, I guess some of the Budweiser sponsored her roller derby team.
Well, if you're going out of the normal sponsor context, you really need to look up the word transference.
Yes.
Because transference is a phenomenon that happens to everybody. Okay? And that's when people start getting close and you haven't been close and you have this intimacy, you get it confused with sexuality.
Right.
And so then you think that you love somebody or you're really trying, and you're not. And I don't
Right.
matter, it doesn't matter whether you're the sponsee or the sponsor.
Right.
And I let everybody know that if you're in that kind of relationship, it's always transference.
Right.
And if you think there's something there and you really do care about a person, you give them a few years.
Right.
And then you'll know whether it's transference or not. But
Right.
it's always transference.
Right.
And it's not okay because there's always a power dynamic.
Right.
And in what we're doing, I'm not saying that sometimes power dynamic relationships don't work, right? But what we're doing, it does not work.
No.
You cannot have a power dynamic relationship.
No.
Because there's just no way to come back.
If you don't know what that is, Google
Right.
it.
Because if you put me on the pedestal and I hurt you, it's your fucking fault, not mine.
Right.
I had to learn that through sponsorship. And
I told you, don't put me on a pedestal,
let
because if I'm
sponsors
wearing
know.
shorts, you're going to be able to look up and see my junk.
That's right.
And
And so I'm not here. I don't debate with people whether you should sponsor women or not or anything like that. What
Yeah.
I do is you just have to know who you are and where you're at.
Right.
And and I've sponsored a few women, several women, and not every woman has worked out for me.
no.
No,
Me
no.
either.
And I've found out.
And I've actually turned
And
some
I've found
down.
out that actually, to be honest with you, most of the time, unless maybe they're multiple relapses or something, brand newcomer women, that just doesn't work.
No.
And I have a rule that I only sponsor one newcomer at a time right now.
Right.
Because I ain't got the time for them.
Right.
I used to sponsor up to 12 to 15 people, right? Anytime
Yeah.
somebody asked me, and I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
The 6 people I work with that are using me, it's like, that's all, God bless America. I'm just getting burnt out because I've been talking to people so much lately, on the phone, and on Messenger. And I got a few now that I can use Messenger. I find that Messenger sometimes is really hard because there's not reflection. And they get
Right.
mad at me, then I got to explain to them what I was saying because they don't understand my beautiful wit and sarcasm that I have developed over the last 64 years.
Beautiful wit and sarcasm. I like. But in summary, I don't know that there is a summary. Sponsorship is the backbone of the program, is the cliche. I do know that I've never been able to stay clean for very long without a sponsor, and I don't know too many people that have.
Oh, but we don't know how to be close to people.
All right,
You got to learn to be close to one person before you can learn how to be close to other people.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for listening. Give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment. Give us a suggestion on a topic. Of course, we'll
Constructive criticism is welcome.
constructive criticism as well.
Trolling is ignored.
Trolling will be deleted.
Yeah, well, it's ignored and then deleted.
Ignored, then deleted. Okay.
I don't even care.
Okay. And I think that's it. Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.